Greetings for Indie Book Publishing, Balboa Press. This is J. Douglas Barker. The book is titled Recalculating The GPS for the Soul, authored by Andrea Stauch, co-authored by her daughter, Samantha Chattel. Andrea, thank you for joining me today from the west coast of Canada.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Absolute pleasure to be here.
I have detected more than the Canadian accent. Share with my audience a little more of your background story and why this book was put to print.
Okay. Well, I do come from England. I was born in London. I was brought up in South Africa. That's probably why the accent is not Canadian. And I'm currently married to a Canadian and enjoy living here on Vancouver Island. And yes, my daughter and I co-authored this little bookie called Recalculating the GPS for the Soul, because it shows, it's sort of an intimate mother-daughter journey of our self-discovery and healing through what I do, which is called numerotherapy, which is really fusing numerology, which is what I have been, a master numerologist for many, many years, with metaphysics, because I am also a metaphysician, and I kind of joined the dotted lines together as I was going through all this numerology that I've been dealing with over the years. I started seeing, signposts and red flags all over the place, and I thought, okay, we have something deeper here, let's go and have a look at it. So really, this was the intimate mother-daughter journey of my very slow and sometimes rather hilarious awakening, because my daughter was at the time a great giving me a kick to get me up and running, and it took a long time. And anyway, here I am. Today I'm a metaphysician, and so is she, and this book, Recalculating the GPS for the Soul, is really meant to give people the tools to be able to help themselves, because so many people over the years keep saying to me when they come to me, I know I should be doing something, but I don't know what. And usually they always come and find somebody like me when their lives are falling to pieces. So the numerology fused into numerotherapy, because not only can I use the numerological part to take out a life map for somebody, but because I am a clairsentient, I'm not a clairvoyant, I'm clairsentient, I can read a person's field, and I can do the energy work to help them to unblock themselves. So this is really how it all started.
In addition to that, you are somewhat of a world traveler and experienced several cultures, including the Seychelles and Brazil and Namibia. Share a little of that story, how you became a citizen of the world.
Yeah, well, when I first got married to my late husband, should we say, we went off to live in the Seychelles Islands, which is halfway between Africa and India. We lived there for a couple of years, had a bit of a failed experiment in tourism, and he said to me, you know what, I'm a farmer by profession, so let's go back farming. So we went back to South Africa, where my children were born, Samantha first, and then I had a son, Simon, who was born 2.5 years later. And then with the situation in South Africa being, as it was in those days, my late husband didn't want children to be brought up in that sort of apartheid-era place. So off we went, and we lived in Brazil for 14 years. But when I mean Brazil, I mean the bush in Brazil.
The bush in Brazil.
150 kilometers away from the nearest big town, and we had to fly. They had to fly me in every month to go and do my shopping because the roads were just too bad.
Incredible.
So that was the very beginning there in Brazil, and then, of course, it got better and better over the years. And then he went back to Namibia, which is where his family had come from, for a family meeting, and he phoned me up and he said, look, Namibia has just become independent. The government have offered me a wonderful job running a research station. Pack up and come to Namibia. So off we went to Namibia. And I was there for 10 years, and 5 years into our being there, he dies. So I stayed there another 5 years, and at that time we were all becoming very much more sort of holistic. Now, Samantha had been holistic from the start. She was born knowing, and this little 5-year-old in Brazil looked up at me one day and she said, Mummy, do you love yourself? And I looked at her and I said, where did you come from? What are you talking about? So she was the one who pulled me, pushed me, cajoled, begged me, and eventually got me onto this holistic life. And she's been on it all along. And she's a very accomplished healer in her own right and a metaphysician. And she is currently anchoring a huge pyramid of light and love, which we all work on. It's connected to various different countries, including the ones I've just mentioned to you. Every Sunday we all get together in our various different time zones. And we just pump out the love and the light to anybody who needs it all over the world.
Share with my listeners a little more of what it means to be a practicer of holistic lifestyle. And what is the best descriptive between the term naturalist and holistic?
Okay, well, holistic means looking at something from the mind, the body, and the soul aspect, whereas a naturalist would be just, looking at things in its natural form, organic food and all that kind of stuff. So to be a holistic person, which is what I am today, and my daughter was born looking at all of these aspects, together we thought, we've got such a lot of combined knowledge between the two of us, and it would be a good idea to put it all down. Now, as a matter of fact, I had started writing a little book about my travels to all these exotic places, and I thought it would be a good idea to have it as a reference book for my grandchildren and their children to come. And then I got a bit bored with all of that, and I stopped that one, and I started writing about another book about numerotherapy, of how I had realized that when people come to me and they say, for example, I find a problem with the number 3, which is all about how it's difficult for a person to be able to express themselves emotionally in an honest way because they fear being laughed at or rejected or humiliated. And I noticed over the years, I'm just taking 3 as an example, that everybody that had that issue would inevitably have physical problems, but always in the same place. And this is where I say I started connecting the dots between the correlation of the number, telling you the lesson, and if you're not listening to the lesson, well, the only way it can catch your attention is to tweak you by giving you a physical problem. So that is where numerotherapy came from. I do a life map for somebody. I see exactly what's going on. I see their talents, which come from their name. I see their issues, which I call life lessons, which comes from their birth date. Then I make all my calculations, and on one A4 piece of paper, I land up with a person's whole life plan, if you like. And for the people that are ailing, not knowing what they're doing, how can I do this? What am I supposed to be doing? Why am I sick? There are answers if you know where to look. They're all there. So that is really numerotherapy. Once I've seen where the issues are, I tell the people, you have problems with feeling, you're afraid of being rejected or humiliated. If somebody laughs at you when you say something and they say, yes, absolutely. So we have on the energy field things called chakras. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Jay.
Yes.
But if a chakra is not working properly, usually it will get blocked. And if it gets blocked, it's not irrigating the physical organs that lie underneath it, so to speak. So that's why there is a correlation between the body being out of whack or discomfort or dis-ease. That's where the word disease comes from. So what we do is we isolate where the block is. We can undo the block and help the person empower themselves and get on with their life plan and do their lessons. By doing their lessons, they begin to understand that they can take control of what's happening in their lives, and they don't need to, have everybody else's leftovers, so they can turn what were their stumbling blocks, actually, into beautiful building blocks. So that is basically what numerotherapy is. Okay. And it's all thanks to Samantha for kicking me into awareness, because I had, amongst my my experiences, I had an NDE, which is what we call a near-death experience, and that was really something quite stunning, which, made me really think. But it took 10 years for that penny to drop. Anyway, slow learner, but I am.
How long did it take you and Samantha to complete this particular book, 134 pages of material?
It was about a year ago now. She called me up here. We had a little Skype, and she said, Mom, I had a meditation yesterday. And in that meditation, I kind of got tweaked on the ear by the universe. It said, it's time for you girls to get that information out to the world. You've got to get going. So she said, how about come down here with your 2 half manuscripts, and I've got a half a manuscript here of what I was writing, and let's just redo everything, and let's put it all together in one book. And that's how Recalculating the GPS for the Soul came about, because if you don't know where you're going, you can't get there.
Is it a fairly simple book for someone who has no clue how to begin understanding numerology?
Oh, yes. Now, I'm not aiming to make numerologists out of everybody, so what we did was I used my life as the example, because people can resonate with a person like me who was fast asleep and very materialistic and totally five-sensory. Mm-hmm. They can resonate how I changed over my life by living in different countries and cultures and coming across different situations, and with my daughter, being the chief kicker in the background, keeping me on the short and narrow there, they can resonate with me, saying, oh, I can resonate with that. Oh, yes, I've had one of these experiences. So what we did was use my life journey, if you like, as the example. I really kind of put myself right out there on a limb, if you like, for people to examine. But it does help by showing people that everyday people can also take control of their lives if they know where to look and ask the right questions.
Spend a couple of sentences or paragraphs and introduce this book to my listeners as though they've never met or heard anything that we've discussed to this moment. Get them interested in buying a copy of Recalculating the GPS for the Soul.
Okie dokie. I would say that Recalculating GPS for the Soul takes you on an intimate mother-daughter journey of self-discovery and healing through numerotherapy and the metaphysics, where it was my daughter Samantha who was my teacher in this life. And I was really the very unwilling student until I began to grasp what she was actually going on about. So it chronicles my very slow and sometimes hilarious awakening and gradual transformation from being that stubborn five-sensory person who only valued material things to becoming a multisensory person who now uses the science of numbers and metaphysics to empower other people through what we call numerotherapy. So I think that kind of tells it all. What we did was we set the book in 2 parts. The first part is really rather a travelogue of all the different places I've lived in and how very gradually pennies started dropping. And then the second part is the part where I use myself as the example with my name, my numbers, and how people can work out exactly what their talent from the name numbers are, where their private, their life lessons come from their date of birth. It's all there. They can work it out. And then I have written in what each number means and how it relates to those things, so they can easily see the problems that they're facing and the talents that they have. And hopefully this little bookie will serve as an aha moment for a lot of people who will say, oh my goodness me, now I understand this. And then we'll just be catalysts for change for them so they can go on and empower themselves.
Andrea Stauch, thank you for joining me today. The title of the book, again, is Recalculating the GPS for the Soul. This has been a book that has just been released, 134 pages, and she's co-written it with her daughter, Samantha Chattel. Andrea, where do my listeners get a copy of your book?
Well, it is available online. I've noticed that there are a gazillion places that are selling it. If you put in recalculating ... the GPS for the Soul, up come a million places. There's Balboa Press. You can order it from there. It's on Amazon.com. It has its own website, the book, which is www, and then just condense everything, recalculating the GPS for the soul.com. On its own website, there are links to where you can go to order the book, and the book comes out in e-copy for those people who have Kindles and Nook books and things. It comes out as a soft cover and a hard cover. Very good.
Listeners, I'll give you the correct spelling of Andrea's last name, Stauch, a German name by origin, pronounced Stauch. Thank you so much for joining me today, Andrea, and sharing your story.
Well, thank you, Jay. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I just hope we we can give people another perspective on the numerology part, just to show people that it's a very useful and empowering tool. It's not just used for party tricks. So we'd like to change the concept of that a bit too.
Very good. Enjoyed visiting with you. For Indie Book Publishing, Balboa Press, this is J. Douglas Barker.